want to welcome you to this second segment on navigating from the balcony. This segment is the segment in which we tackle a simple question: why? Why should I become not just concerned, but committed to my own discipline and practice of a regular balcony, whether it's weekly or monthly or quarterly or on an annual basis? And I would encourage you to be thinking about that in those terms. I engage in a weekly balcony time. Now it takes me probably 15 to 20 minutes every week to just go to a place where I take time to get above the action of my life. I also take time monthly to do this. It's a little bit more time. I also take time on a bi-monthly, quarterly basis to do this. And I also on an annual basis take time for a longer term balcony where I really ask the question, what is this year about? What am I about? And so, but why? Why do this? I want to unfold for you a number of things that are important for us to understand about why the balcony is so important. The balcony is important because we must, as David Kekich says, we must think about our stuff. We need to regularly get above the action, the stuff of our life, and that is what the balcony is so vitally important for. There's also another reason why the balcony discipline goes to the heart of what it is you're doing in the world. And that is simply because no one else will or can tend to the assessment or development of your overall context or leadership system. If you are a manager, supervisor, leader, if you're responsible for a group of people or to a part of an enterprise, and you are entrusted with leading that, there's no one else who can really assess, evaluate, do an audit, do a deep dive on your overall context and leadership system. If you're leading, managing, influencing, supervising, you have to do that work. No one else will. There's also an issue that life often says, operate today. But wise leaders and wise leadership says, I must reflect and take time on what is important for tomorrow. I must do this because I can get caught in an operational mode. And this often happens to many leaders, is that we get into the weekly and monthly duty that is before us, job that's before us, and we get into the trees. We get inside the frame and we get caught up in the operation of what that's all about. And we do not take the time to get above it to ask, what's the operation about in the first place? Why are we doing this? What is most important right now as well as tomorrow? And then there's this word from Alan Kay, who is one of the founders of the personal computer, one of the inventors in the early part of when the personal computer was put together. He used to say, perspective is worth 50 IQ points. There's no science on this. There's no data that says this is true. It was simply his way of saying that when you take time to get perspective on what it is you do and your life and your leadership and your operation, your particular business, your ministry, your church, your nonprofit organization, when you take time to get perspective, take perspective, it makes you wiser. It probably also makes you smarter as a leader. But so often perspective is missing, and we get caught up in a roundless turn of action. Several books have been written recently that simply make the point of the kind of world that we're in. The book by James Gleick and Edward Hallowell make the point we live in a crazy, busy world. James Gleick was seeking to make a point that the acceleration of just about everything means that we can do the title of his book without the vowels. And you could read those 4 letters and know exactly what the word is. That's his point. We were simply moving faster. Crazy busy is Hallowell's, as a medical doctor, saying that we are overstretched and overbooked. And this leads to the dilemma that Cal Newport is seeking to get at. We live now in a distracted world. Distraction is upon us, and we have so many things coming at us that we are losing the ability to do deep work. His point in deep work is that deep work requires the actual practice of getting above the fray, to stepping out of the action and taking time to do what we're calling the balcony. Kethledge and Irwin have written a marvelous book called Lead Yourself First. And they are simply seeking to inspire us to think about how we inspire our own leadership through solitude. And it's actually a historical deep dive in some very well-known people and how they practiced very meaningful action in the world, but they also practiced deep solitude. And in that, they gained clarity, they gained courage, they gained greater creativity because they became more curious in those moments they slowed down their attention. They also gave themselves the gift of calming down. So that work itself is a wonderful complement to this particular webinar. Encourage you to look at it. Carl Honore has also written a few years ago the book entitled The Slow Fix, is that we solve problems and work smarter and live better when we slow down our attention. So these works are simply prompts for us to think about why the balcony is so important. We live in a crazy busy world. We live in a faster world than ever. We must lead ourselves first. We need to slow down our attention. And if we're ever going to do deep work, we're going to have to embrace the balcony discipline. Many people these days are suffering from what we call ambient momentum, and that ambient momentum has led to a balcony deficit. Ambient momentum is something that everyone's affected by. It's been defined in this way. It is simply the constant awareness and experience of speed in the foreground and often the background of our lives. It's a subliminal presence that urges us on beyond the pace at which our minds work best. This ambient momentum of our high-speed lives generates a default action. And that default action is that whenever we slow down, whenever we stop in the doing of our lives, what happens is that we fill up our minds with busyness. We fill up our minds with any kind of activity of busyness, any kind of busyness. And this ambient momentum is something we all experience. And we get caught up in it, and we get on the treadmill of ever keeping active, ever thinking we must be busy. And we even have a sense of feeling guilty when we stop and we sit in the armchair. When we get to a high place and sit on a hillside. When we go up on a balcony and we're not down in the fray of the dance floor. This ambient momentum plays with us, and we experience what we call a balcony deficit. When we have a balcony deficit, when the balcony is missing from my life, when I am very busy, very active, I'm doing, but I don't take time for the balcony, there are certain things that are predictable. Let me share with you the predictable elements of when there's a balcony deficit. Number one, we tunnel down. We experience what one writer has spoken of as tunneling. We simply get into our tunnel and the walls close in, and we begin to just simply bear down on what it is that's in front of us in a given day. We tunnel down. Secondly, we become reactionary. Without a balcony, we're simply reacting. That's why we often talk about, I feel like some weeks when I get to Friday, all I've done is put out fires. What that may indicate is that we're simply answering the emergencies that occur, and we're putting out the fires of day-by-day action, and all we're doing is reacting to things. We're not responding to things. We're not proactive about much because we're reactive about everything. The third thing that happens is we often tackle the wrong problems. When we don't have a balcony discipline, we're not taking time to get above the action of our workplace, our team, our organization. And in that reactionary mode, we're often thinking in the moment, this must be the solution to what it is we're experiencing. And most of us know when we do that, we solve the wrong problems. We also miss the important in our rush to address the urgent. We're vitally in our quadrants of life. We're going to the ringing bells. We're maybe tending to the unimportant. We're tending to the urgent, which may not be important. And we're missing out on that quadrant where the most important things that we could address need to be addressed. When we don't have a balcony, we never think about what might be the most important because we're on the treadmill, we're in the fray. The speed up that is going on around us doesn't give us time to think about what is the most important thing right now. We then trip up. We're simply maybe creating more problems than solutions, and we trip up. We also tire out. One of the things in Kethledge and Irwin's book that is most fascinating is the degree to which leaders who led at very high levels said that their time of solitude was a period of slowing down their own heart rate, the RPMs of their own kind of internal mental processing. And in that, they learn to get calm and they learn to rest. They learn to slow down their breathing, slow down their thinking. And in that, they found a replenishment of energy, a replenishment of courage, a replenishment of curiosity. And rather than tiring out or burning out, they found that they were renewed and refreshed by getting to high ground, to getting outside the frame, getting on the balcony, and taking time to just simply ponder and pray and brood and slow down the roof brain chatter that is often present when we're in action. There's also the element of we lose the sense of who we are and why we're here. When we never take time to reflect critically and personally, we forget really who we are, how we're gifted, where we're at our best. We also forget and lose the sense of why we are here in the first place. The first balcony question we provide for you in the one-page balcony question guide is the question again of Peter Drucker, in which he says there are two questions you should ask yourself often. And question one is, what business are we in? Really? The second question is, how's business? So when we don't have a balcony, we lose the sense of this. Not only who we are, but why we're here, what business we're in. We're not even asking how's business. So the balcony discipline, the why, is very clear. It is a practical discipline that changes everything because it gives you perspective. It turns you from a person who tunnels down to a person who takes time to get above the action and see more. Rather than being reactionary, you become responsive and proactive. Rather than tackling the wrong problems, you learn how to spot and see and then address what may be the core problem. You take time to garner what is the most important thing right now. Rather than tripping up, you journey more wisely. And you also do something in terms of your own replenishment and refreshment. You don't tire out. You renew, you refine, you refocus. And you also need the discipline of the balcony because you must never lose the sense of who you are. And also why you are in the world. And what is the good work that God wants you to do in the world that is left yet to be done. So we'll see you on the other side for the last segment, which is the core of how in the world does one do the balcony. We'll see you in segment 3.